When did time begin? What is time? What is thinking, and where does thinking come from? Do I have a spirit? And if so, in my body, where is it? Is existence finite? Does space come to an end? What is peace? Who are you? If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? We'll answer that question at the end of this video. What is good? What is bad? Why? You, the universe. Why? These are the types of questions that this video series will help you solve. Or at least it'll help you come to more rational conclusions on these topics. By the time this video series is ended, you'll be able to understand what knowledge is, how we derive knowledge and facts, and just as importantly, how to identify hypotheses and theories that should be rejected. Now, I didn't say I'd give you the answers to the questions above. I might give you some of the answers. In fact, I'm going to give you some of the answers. But the point of this is not to just give you answers. The point of this video series is to help you come to rational conclusions, to help you think on your own, to help you understand knowledge and wisdom, to help you better tackle your own life. As we go through this video series journey, we'll run into numerous ideas, some of which I agree with and some of which I don't. The important thing isn't about identifying and supporting ideas you already agree with, but instead is about opening your mind to new ideas, allowing them to process, and confirming whether the new information adjusts with your original ideologies and beliefs. It's okay if you confirm your own beliefs, as long as you do so factually. All right, let's do this. Our existence leaves us with questions, lots of questions. Knowledge leads us to answers, and not just any answers, but answers that are rooted in accuracy and backed with evidence. Where it can't bring us concrete answers, it takes us deeper from the darkness, farther away from the incorrect information or false beliefs we once might have held and had not yet discarded. In either case, knowledge has almost always served as a benefit. From math to science to language to, well, all subjects, they wouldn't be possible without knowledge. Knowledge is one of the reasons humans live such a prosperous and comfortable existence today. The explosion of the internet and human connectivity has sent knowledge to new levels never before seen in human history, on a literal exponential knowledge curve. Many questions in life have been answered thanks to our newfound connectivity, or at least those answers can now be widely communicated, but there are still many questions that humans live with today. Almost everyone asks themselves, how can humans obtain the most peace and prosperity? What is peace? What is prosperity? What is good and what is bad? While we're pondering important questions, let's ask the Mac Daddy of all questions. What is philosophy? On the path to answering that, we must start with another question. How philosophical of us. The question is, what separates humans from rocks and dust? The answer, cognitive ability. Humans can think, but non-living entities and even many living entities, plant, jellyfish, etc., can't think. Even between humans and other living animals, humans are able to use reason at a level that is unparalleled. Our ability to use rationality, not that everyone always does, but the fact that humans can do so at such an innate level, is what separates man and the rest of the animal kingdom. One of the better ways to utilize reason is through dialogue. In philosophy, discussion and argumentation is often referred to as a dialectic. Dialectic is when discussion occurs to move all parties involved towards a rational and truthful conclusion. The textbook definition of dialectic is the art of investigating and discussing the truth of opinions. The tools of experimentation and analyzation, including dialectics, are what has helped turn the information we have into knowledge. We'll get to how humans use rationality, dialogue, and argumentation to find and build upon knowledge. But before we go there, let's touch on something I said in the Knowledge Hunter channel trailer video. In the channel trailer video, I hinted at knowledge leading to better societies. But what exactly do I mean by knowledge? Knowledge is defined as facts, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. Merriam-Webster defines knowledge as the sum of what is known, the body of truth, information, and principles acquired by humankind. It's important to note that for something to be considered real knowledge, it must A, be provable, able to justify the claim, B, the claim must be true, and C, it must be believed by the person saying it. So how do you justify a claim, assertion, or belief? The answer is you have to have some evidence. Also, and this is, for now, at a really high level, and we'll dive deeper into this later, but evidence should be logical. It's important to point out that knowledge is different from information. Information is just data, but without explanation or reason. If you've ever opened up source code on a web page, and you're not someone who programs or knows computer languages, then you might have lots of information and data, but you don't really have any knowledge about the code and what the code is doing. The code itself, which is pretty useless to you, is information, but understanding the code is knowledge. I like to say dictionaries have information, but encyclopedias have knowledge. Dictionaries may have definitions that technically are information, but encyclopedias explain those definitions and carry with it the ability to communicate wisdom. What I mean by this is that information may give you what you need to make a logical determination, but it doesn't give you the answer. It's not itself the logical determination. The logical determination is knowledge. Knowledge is the understanding of the story and the information is telling you. Being able to analyze results and come to a rational conclusion, that is knowledge. The ability to make wiser decisions in the future, that's knowledge. Reasoning is an action that living entities utilize to process information and data, and to turn that data and information into knowledge. Information is an input for logic, which utilizes reason to create knowledge. It's important to point out that knowledge is always being created and or updated. The knowledge we had at the beginning of human existence and the human knowledge we have today are obviously different, which shows that knowledge isn't static. An important fact about knowledge is that knowledge can be updated, improved, grown upon. All modern progress is because we once didn't have as much knowledge, and then afterwards we gained the knowledge to progress, whether technologically, medically, and even in the realm of philosophy itself. We can actually use philosophy to improve philosophy. This is the perfect time to turn our full attention to philosophy, and specifically the branches of philosophy. Knowledge is one subsection of philosophy, philosophy being the study of knowledge, reality, and existence. Historically, most subjects like math, science, etc., were considered philosophies. There was math philosophy, and science philosophy, and political philosophy, etc., ad nauseum. The initial abbreviation PhD literally stands for philosophy of doctor, in that traditional spirit of the term philosophy. Philosophy is not just about finding answers, but also about how we find those answers, truthfully and honestly. Philosophy helps us more easily recognize what is not true, so that we can more narrowly approach what is true. Philosophy also helps us identify logical fallacies, which can affect our experiments and or research. With knowing how to acquire knowledge, philosophy can help us avoid things like cherry-picking confirmation bias, straw-man arguments, appeal to authority fallacies, circular arguments, false dilemmas, and many more fallacies and other forms of flawed reasoning. There are four main branches of philosophy. Metaphysics, which I'm considering aesthetics under the metaphysics camp. Epistemology, logic, and then I put two together here, value ethics and axiology. I've lumped axiology and value ethics together in this video series, but we'll explain each in subsequent videos. But philosophy is a big tent, with people having numerous other branches added in, such as political philosophy, once again aesthetics, cosmology, realism, theology, and I could go on for hours. There's a joke that if you ask 10 philosophers how many main branches of philosophy there are, you'll get 11 answers. We're going to be examining the four main branches in this video, but we'll dive deeper into the other branches in future videos, so make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so you get those videos when they're produced. First up, metaphysics. Let's jump right into it. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of consciousness and reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, between substance and attribute, and between potentiality and actuality. Metaphysics studies questions related to what it is for something to exist, what types of existence there are. Metaphysics looks at answers to questions like, what is there? What is it like? What is existence? What is the universe? What is being human? What's the relationship between the mind and the body? Topics of metaphysical investigation include existence, objects, and their properties, space and time, cause and effect, and possibility. Inside of metaphysics, you have ontology, which is known as the study of being. Ontology studies concepts such as existence, being, becoming, and reality. It includes the questions of how entities are grouped into basic categories, and which of these entities exist on the most fundamental level. Philosophical propositions such as determinism and free will, these debates between mind and matter, they're all rooted in metaphysics. Metaphysics continues asking why, where science reaches its physical testable limits. Metaphysics has been utilized since before the pre-Socratic times. Next, we turn to epistemology. In philosophy, the study of knowledge is known as epistemology. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. It's concerned with how we acquire knowledge. Within epistemology, a debate rages between empiricism and rationalism. Rationalism is defined as the use of reason to formulate knowledge. Deduction is a perfect example, where we get knowledge from innate ideas. This is also known as a priori. A priori knowledge is knowledge that is known independently of experience, that it is not empirical. It's arrived at before experience, usually by reason. It will henceforth be acquired through anything that is dependent from experience. Famous rationalists include but are not limited to Rene Descartes, George Frederick Hegel, Noam Chomsky, Immanuel Kant, and Plato dating back to almost 400 BC. Empiricism is the use of sense perception to formulate knowledge. Empiricism utilizes inductive reasoning from experimentation, what's known as a posteriori. A posteriori knowledge is knowledge that is known by experience, that is, it is empirical. Examples being observation and use of senses such as sight, smell, sound, touch, and taste. Empiricism focuses on empirical rationality over conjectural traditions. Famous empiricist philosophers include but are not limited to John Locke, David Hume, John Stuart Mill, Bertrand Russell, Thomas Hobbes, Francis Bacon, and Epicurus dating back to 300 BC. We want to turn our attention over to the next branch of philosophy, ethics. Ethics is a branch of philosophy that includes systemizing, defending, and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. Axiology is the philosophical study of value. It includes questions about the nature and classification of values and what kinds of things have value. It is intimately connected with various other philosophical fields that crucially depend on the notion of value, like ethics. Ethics and axiology focus on questions such as what is good and what is evil, what is moral and ethical, where does morality come from if it does exist, how do rules come about in human action. I think, therefore I am, therefore I own myself. Can morals be objective or are they subjective? These are the types of questions that are examined from an ethical and axiological philosophical lens. In future videos, we'll be examining how value is derived and how we use value to guide our moral and ethical decisions. The last but not least of the four main branches of philosophy we'll talk about today is logic. Logic is the branch of philosophy that studies reasoning and argumentation. In this case, once again, not yelling and shouting, but argumentation as in dialectics. More like civil discussions than what we think of arguments today. Logic teaches us how to differentiate between good and bad reasoning and how to construct valid arguments. Logic is a critical thinking skill that aims to reach well-founded conclusions. Logic is useful in epistemology in that we find the world we live in, our existence, has and follows logical patterns, whereas logic dissects propositions, claims, and conclusions to more clearly see fallacious reasoning. Epistemology evaluates soundness of arguments and the truth of propositions. To better understand the difference, let's look at a following example. If A equals B, and then we, in the next line, say if A, well then it only follows then B. This is logically consistent insofar as sound argument. Now what if we said chairs equals TVs? If chairs, then TVs? Well, while the logical reasoning behind the variables is accurate, it's definitely not a sound argument. There are really two different types of reasoning, deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is when, given certain premises, conclusions are assumed to be true. Let me give an example of a conclusion that is reached from two premises. All humans are animals. All animals need water to live. Well, with this information, we could accurately deduce that all humans need water to live. Math is deductive reasoning. That being said, religion is also a deductive form of reasoning. Deductive reasoning is usually associated heavily with rationalism through philosophical history. Conversely, there's inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a logical thinking method where one's experiences and observations, including what is learned from others, are synthesized to come up with a general truth. The scientific method utilizes inductive reasoning. Philosophers study paradoxes and logical fallacies as a way for us to identify bad arguments and to avoid circular logic or irrational points of view. All of the things we just discussed are tools humans use to utilize logic. Once again, we'll be going much more in depth on these philosophical branches in future videos, as well as jumping into new philosophical territory, such as political philosophy. As we proceed forward in the next video series, I do ask you to ponder your existence up to this point. Are you like the geocentrist? That is, the people who used to wrongly think that the Earth was the center of the solar system, who centuries ago ignored the science of astronomy and physics, who even condemned others who simply tried to propose new ideas that could give a better explanation of the world? The type of person who held back human advancement and who gave moral sanction to false and self-refuting beliefs. Is there an area in your life where you're clinging to ignorance and or a lack of empiricism or a lack of reason? Or are you like the heliocentrist who lived in a dystopian geocentristic world centuries ago, who fought with logic and reason and empiricism to prove the rest of the world that their geocentristic models were false? Who faced prison and even faced death from kings and queens who hated reason and truth, who actually pushed humanity closer to not only facts, but real knowledge despite the insurmountable odds? Be the heliocentrist. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to jump much deeper into metaphysics. Oh, and a tree does make a sound.